Hello and welcome to this episode of the Road to Rec League podcast. I'm Callum, and in today's episode I'm going to be doing my very best impression of the Proclaimers. I'm not going to be singing in a Scottish accent today, and I'm sure you'll all be pretty grateful for that. But actually I'm going to talk about the travel, I suppose, I take. And it's a very fitting number of miles I travelled this week in order to fulfill my rec league or my hockey desires. So I think I mentioned it a little bit last week. I had 3 sessions this week, which was really good. I had a scrimmage in Swindon, I had practice in Cardiff, and then I had another training session in Bristol. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I work sort of 2.5 hours away from where I live. It's quite a trip for that. And over and above the drive to and from work, this month I did essentially an additional 500 miles. Hence the Proclaimers reference, if no one got that. I didn't walk these 500 miles, though. I did drive them, thankfully, because walking with a kit bag for 500 miles doesn't sound like a particularly fun idea. But yeah, so this week I drove, I was like 497 miles. I should have just gone around a roundabout a few times to round it off. But I'm going to call that 500. In the pursuit of a skate sharpening and 3 sessions. And the reason I wanted to talk about that, apart from the obvious line I get to now use on some kind of clip if I manage to do this, which is, this week I drove 500 miles in order for me to go to my hockey sessions. I also now get to talk a little bit about, I suppose, the impact that has day to day, trying to progress and learn something new at 30, when it's not something you can just do in your own back garden, I think is a really interesting concept. And I've talked about it a lot at the sort of start of this podcast journey when I was talking about trying to maximize off-ice learnings so that I didn't have to put so much pressure on on-ice time. But at the end of the day, you don't get better at skating without skating. You do need to do that even with off-ice stuff. And so I've been sort of relentlessly pursuing that. And I think it's left me with a really interesting, not conundrum, but this week in particular, a bit of a question around how do I get that balance right? How do I get that balance between both types of training and also my own wellness and effort and energy that I can put into the rest of my life without it being all-consuming? Because let's be honest, I mean, hockey for me at the moment it's my all-consuming hobby. I'll say that much. Obviously, I keep down a job, which is great, and spend time with friends and family and such. But when it comes to actually, my spare time, hockey is almost every single waking moment of that. And I make decisions during the week outside of hobby time to facilitate hockey, whether that be how I choose to, like I say, sort out my driving, whether I meal prep or anything like that. It's with an aim to be fit for hockey or be ready for hockey. So what I'll do really quickly is just talk very briefly about the 3 sessions that I went to. And then I just want to do a bit of a reflection exercise, if you like, and talk about next week, because, there's a couple of things next week. First of all, a change in my training pattern, shall we say, forced onto me because of a slight niggle in my hip. But also, it's the trade deadline next week. So we're going to obviously, maybe not obviously, but we're going to spend a bit of time talking about that, I suspect. Umming and ahhing about whether or not I can fire up a stream or something and have a bit of fun with it on YouTube or Twitch or something. But we will see where we go with that. To begin with, though, let's talk about my 500-mile journey and what I actually got for my 500 miles. So 3 hours of ice time is the truth there. And in terms of driving time, I know 500 miles is slightly, how long did that take? Well, it was about 6 hours of driving on the Wednesday for a 1-hour session. I did 2 hours of driving on the Friday, and I added an additional hour on last Sunday. So that's the rough split, if you like. Started off on the Sunday with a scrim in Swindon. So it's just an open scrimmage, which was really nice. Nice just to be able to stretch the legs and get stuck into that sort of stuff. I got to play with new people that I've not played with before, catch a couple of old people up that I've not seen in a while, which was lovely. Really fun session. Scored an empty netter, fine, whatever. But made some nice defensive plays. And the one thing I wanted to take away from it was I'm quite comfortable going into block shots. And I think that's something that has really benefited me. It's that kind of commitment and effort, I suppose. And I, for the first time, blocked a shot with my skate and it caught the skate blade, and I felt it basically vibrate up through my foot. First time I've had that. I've had a few ping off the shins, and they've been fine. I've had a couple hit me in other bits of padding, and I felt absolutely fine. This was probably the first one where it stung a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit. It was noticeable until the next shift. But I was really proud of myself for putting myself in harm's way. And the guy had a bit of a cannon compared to a couple of other people, but I think he might have dialed it back because I just skated straight at him. And I feel like that, if that makes someone rush or misplace their shot, even if it hits me or doesn't hit me, I feel like closing the gap is the right thing to do. So I've done that a couple of times now, and I'm making a habit of it, and like I say, getting in the way. So yeah, that definitely worked out quite well. I made a couple of really nice plays as well. I had a really nice cycle, I guess, that led to a scoring chance. We didn't score, but essentially, I think the puck squirted out down low. I chased it down, banked a pass off the boards to someone who was probably up by the goal line, and they fired it across to someone who was at the bottom of the face-off dot, sort of just beyond the hash marks, and they fired a shot in on net, and it was a good save. But it was like a really nice play. Oh, in fact, he might have scored, actually, come to think of it. Anyway, it was a lovely bit of play, and it was what was nice for me in my in sort of my contribution to that was I saw where the puck had gone. I'd looked over my shoulder. I already knew where they were, so that banked pass wasn't necessarily blind, but I didn't need to look up, take some time, make the pass, because I did that before I got to the puck, so I was able to make the pass. And I think I talked a lot about that. Maybe that's a different session, actually, but it's something I've worked on, and it comes up again in another session as well, that kind of reading the play before you make the pass sort of thing, which is good. Yeah, so that was the scrimmage on Sunday. I had team training on Wednesday, and honestly, my legs were a little bit slow. I was a bit stuck in the mud, which was a bit frustrating. And later sort of had grown to realise that I've got a bit of a twinge in my hip, and it's not really helping my skating at the moment. I think I've pulled something. I've got a bit of a sort of lump on my inner hip, and it's all a bit tender. So playing that by ear, but initially just going to focus on resting for a week and a bit. So we'll see how that goes. But I did feel a bit slow, a little bit stuck in the mud. However, when it came to actual plays, effectively breaking up passes, had a really nice play in one of the drills where someone thought it was over, and I put a second effort in and managed to keep the puck in at the blue line. We were basically doing 3-on-3 in zone. So I put the extra effort in, gave a big reach, picked up the puck, and basically managed to keep a play going, and we sent the puck in the other way and put on a 2-on-1 off the back of that effort. So putting in the extra effort in drills is obviously important to me. Showing up and putting in the effort, it matters. Worked really, really hard, which was great. And then there was one sort of, I won't say one play, because it was actually 3 or 4 of the same play. But I took the puck, I'd carry the puck in, or I'd pick up a pass, or I'd retrieve the puck, or whatever. And let's say I'm left half of the left face-off dot, and I'm skating in towards the net. 3 or 4 times I did these, and I'm going to put air marks around these no-look, but behind the back, banked off the board pass. Successfully 3 out of 4 times. One of them, the other person ended up turning away from where they were, so it didn't quite work out, unfortunately. But for 3 of them, literally tape to tape, it was almost perfect. I was really proud of myself, actually. And that was the same thing I was talking about earlier, where I read the play, I heard the call, and I knew where to put it, and just banked the pass off the boards. So those little things were really nice. Nothing overly extravagant outside of that. Found myself in the right kinds of places, but it's 6 of 1 and half a dozen. Got some good feedback on me not being able to pick up the puck in transition, so I stopped moving my feet when I want to interact with the puck, and it's something I need to get more used to, is moving my feet while receiving a pass or taking or making a play. I kind of stop moving my feet, pick up the pass, start moving my feet, and I need to find a way for that to be a little bit more fluid, I think. And it's just going to take a bit of time and exposure to that, I think. And skating onto something versus skating with the pass. So, for example, if the pass is fired at me and I'm skating forwards, I feel a lot more comfortable. If the pass is coming from my back or like side, an angle, or from behind me at an angle, I feel a lot less comfortable in just picking that puck up and making a play. So need to work on receiving passes, backhand and forehand, coming off the, off the rush, if you like. Definitely something to work on. But yeah, really good. Really good. Also, as a bit of a side note, part of my travel this week included an overnight stay at a cheap hotel, what a shit show. No hot water, itchy bed, noisy radiator. Didn't get in until 3:30 in the morning. I was sat in the lobby for 15 minutes. And there was another one as well. What was the other one? There's something else wrong with the room. Oh yeah, flickering lights. Like none of the lights stayed on. It was it was just an absolute shit show. I got 2.5 hours sleep and then I had to drive into work. So definitely learnt my lesson there around where to stay. So perhaps if I do this kind of long drive again, I won't be doing it in quite the same way. So a good lesson learnt. But yeah, got into a rhythm with a couple of things and enjoyed that. But ultimately, I say it was fighting it with the feet a little bit. And then the last session was an additional training slot. It's this low numbers one that happens on a Friday in Bristol, and I really enjoyed that. First play in first horseshoe for the warm up, landed on my arse. Second horseshoe for the warm up, landed on my knees. So I spent plenty of time on the floor, but had a really good pass in that. So landed on my arse, not so good. The second one, it was because I was stretching for a play, and I think I was trying to skate and stretch and reach the puck, and ended up falling on my knees. But as I fell on my knees and slid out, I still managed to make the pass and set up a goal. It was a 2-on-0 horseshoe, I think it was. And I say I missed it, but I managed to swipe at it and still make the pass to the other player. And when I sort of got up, someone was like, "That was a really nice pass." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." So I'll always try and make that effort play, I guess. That's never a problem. I did, after landing square on my arse, have a very sore left sort of back of the leg, and again, that didn't help my hip situation either. So I was battling a bit of pain on that and some sore glutes, and then I found myself compensating for it and feeling a bit stiff. So I'm hoping a couple of days off helps, but I felt my legs starting to give way a little bit more towards the end of the session, and I suspect that was just how I took my hit. Had a couple of good instances of robbing good players at their defensive blue lines. They were trying to skate the puck out. I managed to stop a couple of plays exiting their zone. Some strong stick, even on one-handed stuff, but there were a couple of occasions where maybe I should have tried to go two-handed. My problem is I reach a lot because it's actually one of the things I think I've got in my bag is like a long arm and a long stick, and I'm quite happy with a long stick. So it means I can break up plays where people maybe wouldn't normally. However, it does mean that I try to break up those plays, and then it can look a bit bad because it's a weak stick. So I'm not going quite as far in to close the people off necessarily. So that's something to consider. I really need to get more comfortable getting in tight and in close with people, and that's something I've picked up on. And I'm sort of thinking about writing a bit of a list of things to improve. And I know that's going to be a very long list to begin with, but I'm getting lots and lots of feedback from different people. So I had a really good bit of feedback at the end of that session, which was I'm getting my skate sharpened too much. My blade is getting a bit short. And also he suggested going to a different grind and seeing how I felt on an even shallower grind than I'm on right now. And he's like, learn to manage an edge on a shallow grind. You'll feel a lot more comfortable for it. You'll go faster for it. It's the right thing to do. I'm all for trying. So next time I do get my skate sharpened, which I'm trying not to rush now because of that feedback from him, I'll be going for a 3/4, I think, because I'm 5/8 at the moment. And I came down from a half to 5/8 and really enjoyed that. So perhaps going shallower again might be the right thing for me. Don't know. We'll find out at the end of the day. And I'm not exactly a light lad, so I'm sure I can cut into the ice even with that weight. Even with that grind, sorry, despite my weight. So, but yeah, I had a really good session. Really enjoyed it. I made a couple of nice plays here and there. Again, someone made a comment actually that I thought was really lovely. And they basically turned around. They were like, "You are putting an absolute shift in." So I back check hard every single time. I forecheck hard every single time. Like, I might not be the quickest skater, but I try so hard. And I think people realize that, and they're like, "Oh, you're really working hard." And my comment is always the same. Yes, I work that hard because if I didn't, imagine how shit I'd look. It's partly true, partly because I hate losing and I hate looking bad. So I try really damn hard to make up for that. But it's also because that's the kind of player I think I want to be. It's the kind of thing that I think matters in this sport is effort and drive. And it's going to hopefully make me stand out as someone that people want to trust and want to, put time and effort into. And I'm getting loads of people giving me great feedback. And they're probably doing that because they're seeing the effort I'm putting in. Because if I half-assed it and floated around, I don't know if you get that feedback in quite the same way. So that was my week. 3 good sessions. Like I say, slightly frustrated by the little niggle I've picked up in my hip. And hopefully, at the end of the day, that can work itself out. On reflection, the driving probably a little bit much. I can do it now and again. I think I'm keen to try again and try a few things differently. Be a little bit more prepared with my meal choices. I was pretty good, but not great. And also stay closer to the rink on the Wednesday, and just have a longer drive in the morning, because trying to do 2/3 of the journey down was just so much work. And yeah, it just got me to the point where I was, half asleep, and I was like, fuck, I've got to pull over, I've got to stop and stretch and walk, and then get back in the car and do another 30 miles. And honestly, I could have just done with a shower and going to bed, and then gotten up at 4 and driven in. So, I've got that lesson learned, if you like, up my sleeve, which is going to be really helpful. So I will try it again, just not this Wednesday, because, like I say, I really need to just let my body rest a bit. I did actually, in thinking about that, have a bit of a ponder that I've actually skated every single week since August 10th last year. So at least once a week, I think I've skated. And so it's little wonder that I'm starting to just feel a little bit of pain here and there. An odd landing here. I got up too quickly from the sofa and tweaked something there, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, actually, I can start to feel it a bit more. So a little bit of rest, a little bit of recoup, and a bit of a refocus as well on the kinds of training I think I need to do. When it comes to healthy choices, obviously I spoke last week about being a little bit more accountable for my weight journey. I'm not going to just call it a loss, because it's going to involve gaining some muscle at some point, but I'm down another half kilo, which is great. So another point, I think it was 0.6 of a kilo gone. So after the first one, which was a little bit more drastic, I'm down at 87.1 now, which is good. The intermittent fasting is going quite well. There are days it's hard. It was really hard on Wednesday this week with hockey and everything. Really struggle with that. But at the end of the day, there are going to be days like that, and there are going to be days when it's easy, like it was on other days of the week. So, 6 of one and half a dozen, as they say, and I've just got to keep the focus, really, keep trusting the process, and I'm sure I'll get there. And that's about that, really, for this week. So looking ahead, then, like I say, going to be pretty rest based for this week, just to try and look after myself a little bit, honestly. The plan is light stretching for most of the week. I want to do some cardio for one day, but I certainly don't want it to be too focused on hip mobility. So it won't be running or anything of that nature. I say it's probably going to be stretches and walking, honestly, just to keep myself fit and fighting, so that I can get back to my best for hopefully not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after as team practice, because that'll be the last one before the team play, which will be really cool. So I'll get to share some results. Hopefully I'll go down and see them. I think the last time I tried, my car broke down, so I'm hoping for not the same this time. But you're going to head out to an away game, support the boys, and do what I can to help out, obviously. Offer up my services for support, because it certainly won't be likely that I'll be picked, I'll say that much. I'm nowhere near the top, 9 forwards, because we take 9 forwards and 6 defensemen. I'm nowhere near the top 9, so got a long way to go for that, sadly. We've probably got registered 20 forwards, and I would say I'm in the bottom 3 or 4, so on any given day, maybe lower than that, frankly. So lots of work to do. My aim of maybe being capable by August of this year is still on, for perhaps making one game, but we will see. Time will absolutely tell. And to support that, like I say, bit of recovery, bit of rest, and I'm going to try and map out a few things here for building up some physical strength and some joint strength as well. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to call it really here, because I've talked about the 500 miles. That was good fun. Talked a little bit about just resting and recuperating and looking after my body for a week, and set things up nicely for next week, where I can talk about exactly what I have done to look after myself and what I've learned across the course of that process for the week. I think it's going to be mentally difficult to not be out on the ice, honestly. I'm not looking forward to it. I've really enjoyed skating every week, and it's going to be hard to let that go, but I think it's the right thing to do for me, so got to take that decision. And then I'll also maybe do a bit of a roundup of the trade deadline, because I do think that's going to be quite interesting. Until then, though, that's it from me. I say another good week in the bag. And until next time, hope you all have a lovely time wherever you are, and goodbye for now.